What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of On the Bump. This is episode 1 of On the Bump Across the Diamond, and I've got Joey Lauer, aka 60 ERA guy, back for the first episode of this new series. Joey, how are we doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad that you're back here. This series, we're going to dive into different questions, different topics that we don't really kind of talk about in On the Bump, but this will be more of a discussion, more of a topic discussion based video series. Let's dive in. So, our first topic that I brought Joey on to talk about is the question, do supplements help pitchers? So, Joey, what do you think?
Yeah, so basically we had this conversation over text the other day because he was asking me what exactly do I do for supplements and what I would recommend for him to take because he's looking to optimize his performance. And I kind of gave him a pretty interesting answer because I have never taken a supplement in my life, not creatine, none of that. And there's not a specific reason why I never did. I mean, I just sort of never was like, oh, I definitely need that to help boost my performance. So I never just went in and did it. I mean, I think there's definitely some benefits, but I also, at the same time, I sort of was like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'll stick to my Chipotle, chocolate milk, and PB&Js.
Yeah, I think more of like I had kind of a different experience. So because like I had to kind of play catch up because my body was, kind of a what you would say maybe like a late bloomer. I didn't grow until late in high school. I was short for pretty much half of high school. And then, around my sophomore, junior year, that's when I started growing, massively. So my body was, trying to deal with all this, new length that, really hadn't dealt with before. And on top of that, I wasn't really lifting weights early on. And so I started taking creatine and started taking like this protein. It's kind of like this protein powder. It's like it has more calories in it to just kind of boost like gaining weight and putting on muscle mass more easily, just because I had to catch up to the competition that was already kind of ahead of me, playing catch up for so many years. But in my experience, I'd say that like supplements really, they did help me. Now, was it a necessity? Maybe if I had started lifting early on and started having that foundation, maybe not necessarily, but I don't know. In my experience, I've seen lots of benefit from it, especially when I've been consistent about, taking them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I was going to sort of say, like, that's where I think we differ is because I started very young, where I was like 11, 12, lifting weights already. So having that foundation already built at such a young age, I didn't think I necessarily needed to like give myself this different type of way to get the strength on quick because I didn't feel like I needed to put it on quick because I'd been playing the long game the whole time. And I've noticed like a lot of my teammates take creatine, a lot of my teammates do like the fish oil, all that crap. But I don't know. For me personally, I never think I needed it. So I just never took it. I mean, I also just barely even take like Advil. So I'm kind of just anti like taking things for some reason.
maybe that's the way everyone has to go now because like, I mean, you look at, yourself, Joey, and you're throwing 98. Maybe everyone just needs to stop taking supplements, and everyone needs to maybe start playing the long game. You know what I mean? Like if let's say everyone was committed to baseball or to, one sport early on in their lives, right? I mean, obviously you did swimming too, but let's say everyone was playing baseball from an early age and they gained X amount of weight per their height, right? So they maxed out how much weight they should put on for their height, and they were consistently doing that, right? Then, I mean, I guess technically, unless you had like, I mean, maybe it was, genetics. I mean, genetics are always different, and you're only blessed with certain genetics. But what if everyone like was able to do that? If that was the case, then maybe some people wouldn't need supplements. I mean, they'd already
Yeah.
weigh enough. They'd already, you'd already be tall enough. You'd already have enough muscle mass. Then at that point, it would just be getting technique down and maybe getting some better mobility, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like you specifically, but I think sometimes with these people that are like trying to find an easy way out, right?
right.
And sometimes like they'll be like, okay, creatine, that's gonna make me huge. People look for an easy way out as opposed to taking the long road and taking the hard road to get to where they want to be. And like obviously creatine is very far from a performance enhancing drug, but saying like in my brain, anything that's gonna like boost it other than me taking the hard road is not a road I want to go down for some reason. In my brain, it's like if I for some reason in my brain, if I took creatine, that would be cheating to get me from 98 to 100. Like it'd just be cheating.
So was it always easy for you to put on like muscle mass? Like especially like in your life? Like was it easy? You know,
No, it was incredibly hard. I mean, when I was little, I was like 90 pounds, 5 foot, I don't know. And I had to force myself to eat because I don't enjoy eating even to this day. Like I could just go hungry the whole day. Like the only thing that forces me to eat is my drive to get better at baseball. Like I'll be like, oh, I don't really want to eat, but I want to hit 100, so I got to eat.
so what's your favorite food then, Joey? Like what's your favorite food? If you don't enjoy eating, like you've got to have a favorite food.
Calamari.
You like calamari?
Yeah, that's my favorite food, if not steak. But steak I've kind of evolved into because of like that's the best way to get nutrients.
I mean, Eric Sim would endorse this. We're talking about steak. So
Yeah,
steak is good. Steak is good for pitchers. Everyone listening, steak is good for pitchers.
steak is very good. I eat a lot of steak, especially in my burritos at Chipotle. That's also
Personally,
one of my go-to lines if people are like, "So what do you take for supplements and stuff?" I go Chipotle. That's my supplement because it's a great like nutrient rich little like pot of food, and you just you down it, and then you feel better. I don't know.
yeah, Chipotle is good for the mind. You know, honestly, if they started selling chocolate milk at Chipotle with burritos, I feel like a lot more like lifters and people who work out would go there because then
For sure.
you give them chocolate milk and a burrito. I mean, for what? Like $12? I mean, you can't beat that. I mean,
Yeah,
seriously, can't
it's
beat that.
good.
Baseball kind of ever changing, we're getting the game is getting different every year, I mean, guys are finding ways to throw harder. They're putting so much force upon their bodies. I feel like at some point the human body can only sustain so much. So at that point, maybe you would need like some type of supplement to help yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, body can only take so much. So is the supplement really going to keep you healthy, or is it you're still going to break down and it's just kind of pushing off the inevitable? That's another question you could ask.
That's true. Maybe it would be more of like a band-aid, like a supplements. Maybe it's more of like a band-aid,
Yeah,
It's just like a short-term fix, like Advil, like you were talking about. Advil takes away pain for like 4 to 6 hours, right?
right.
So, you know, maybe maybe you just have to build up, more of a pain tolerance, or I don't know. You know what I mean? Different types of things like that.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I mean, supplements I think are good for depending on what your situation is. So I mean, for me, I started lifting late. I didn't really put on weight until very late in my career life, pitching
yep,
wise, having to play catch up. So yeah, so I think you know like supplements are good depending on your situation, and maybe that's the route they go. Should they always be taken? That I think is different. It just depends on the person.
yep. I would
So
say that, and then another thing to kind of branch out, I would say hydration is just extremely underrated. I don't think half the population of Earth drinks enough water each day. So I think trying to focus on getting a gallon of water a day, especially as a high elite performing athlete, is very important. I mean, there was days where like I just got back from vacation, for example, right? and I probably wasn't drinking a gallon of water a day because it's just kind of you're out and about and like I don't know, just not as often, right?
Yeah.
And I get back and I'm not throwing as hard at the moment. And it's mostly because one, I'm out of whack, but two, I think hydration is just off and sleep. So sleep and hydration are off. You're not going to perform at your peak. And now, like, I'm starting to get back in the groove. Everything's feeling better, but like, there's definitely something to be said about being hydrated because I mean, the majority of our body is made of water. If you're low on water, you're not gonna perform at your highest level. And I guess I could branch even further into like I don't think drinking alcohol is that great for getting to the peak of your performance. I mean, specifically for me, I don't drink anything other than chocolate milk, water, the occasional strawberry milkshake, and lemonade if I go out to a restaurant. Like that's the only drinks I drink. So if I guess those are the drinks you could drink if you want to throw hard, maybe. I don't know. I don't mind pink lemonade, but I definitely just like the taste of lemonade every once in a while.
So what do you think about like soda, like caffeine? Like, what are your thoughts on caffeine? Would you say that's a supplement, or would you say that that's like what do you think about that?
I mean, me personally, I don't even drink that. Like I've never drank in a bang. I make fun of all my friends that drink bangs before games and all that. And they could attest to that. For me personally, I just never have liked carbonation. So anything that's like carbonated, I want nothing to do with.
So no soda, no energy drinks, no pre-workout, nothing?
I've
None of
never
that.
had pre-workout. I've never had well, I'd be lying if I said I never had soda because I've taste tested soda, but I've never finished a soda in my life.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, just carbonation doesn't agree with me. I don't like it.
Is it more of like a like you just don't like the taste of carbonation, or is it like does it just not make you feel good?
Kind of both. I don't. It doesn't make me feel good, and I don't really like the fizzing of my mouth. Like I don't know.
That's another thing that I started taking when I started lifting was pre-workout, mostly because there was a little bit of creatine in it, but it also had like, that boost of caffeine. Because I will admit there were days where like, you don't get enough sleep, right? And again, it goes
Right.
back to that thing of like what you're lacking. If you're lacking sleep or you're lacking energy, right? People use it as like that band-aid for them to complete the task at hand, right?
Right.
You don't have enough energy to throw, right? People take caffeine pills, people take different things. If you drank like an energy drink or like a bang or like a pre-workout drink and then you went and threw, right? Would maybe that result in you getting like faster numbers?
I have no idea. I don't think anything can simulate what I do on those days when I'm going through my hardest. Like I just go into the depths of my brain to pull out anything that'll piss me off. And then I don't think any pre-workout could adjust that. Like I have these random days where I'll hit these big numbers and it's like I went somewhere in my brain to a different level. And even like what you were saying about pre-workout, like you need to pick me up in the morning. I'll think of something that I did, or whether it's what I did or someone said to me about me not being able to do something, and that's what gets me through that day.
Wow, that is crazy. So
But
you
the adrenaline that releases when I do that, whether it's like, oh, somebody said I couldn't do something, or I was like thinking about a moment when I was little where I just didn't perform the way I wanted to, or something along those lines. It'll just release adrenaline in myself, and then I'm just gone. Like I'm going crazy mode.
that should be your new nickname. It shouldn't be 60 ERA guy. It should be all natural Joey. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it really is. It is interesting how people find different ways to give their bodies different stimuluses.
Yeah, have you ever seen like the video of Eddie Hall talking about him pulling 500 kilogram deadlift?
I think I have seen that video.
Yeah, so at the time, no one had ever, well, he had the record at 465.
Yeah.
And I mean, no one had ever thought like 500 would be possible. And like watching that video, I've watched it probably 10 times over the last 4 years. And he just talks about like the depths he had to go to in his brain to just get to 100% of his muscle fibers firing and releasing that adrenaline in himself. And like just hearing that made me go to the drawing board about like thinking like he said he was seeking out like psychotherapists and all this stuff, like, but I was thinking about how can I do that in my own brain to try and get a little more out of myself. And I don't know if I actually have it going, but I must have done something because I'll have these random days where it's like 98. I didn't expect to hit 98 when I showed up that day. But I was like, all right, I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks and I need to do something good here. Like I need to at least hit 97 because I knew when I came back I was going to be a little off. So that was what I did in my brain, and then I just sort of like I went there and I got to that place and I was sitting 96, 98 that day, even though I was like 94 to 96 on my best days before. I don't know. It was just crazy.
Wow. Yeah,
So I
I
must
mean,
have been able to do something to release that. Because I had another instance like when I first ever hit 94 where it was very similar. It was like during COVID, I was bored in my yard and I just somehow managed to release this like I don't know, mode in my brain that boom, going crazy.
yeah, it's definitely different for different guys and kind of what they need to get going. I mean, maybe for you it's mentally, maybe for some other guy it's they need more sleep. I know that my throwing partner needs like 12 hours of sleep to throw on like great on his day. Yeah, it's different for every guy. I think for me did I have a good warm up? If I had a good warm up, I feel like I can throw like my best that day. Have a good warm up and I'm kind of think I like kind of like you, Joey. I kind of pitch with a lot of anger. Like
I don't pitch with anger. That's the thing. Like I don't get mad. It's just like in my brain, something has to release that makes me mad. And then I have this like crazy level of focus that I don't portray in an angry way. It's interesting.
Okay, then not like you. But for me, I pitch with a lot of anger. So I'm like, you don't want to talk to me like I'm on the mound. And then after the game, I'll, be your friend. But like, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you're entering that different like kind of version of yourself. It's kind of like your alter ego almost. I don't think any supplement in the world can like reproduce that type of feeling.
I agree.
So
I think it's better to just be all natural in most instances because your body like can adapt to things on its own. If you give it some sort of chemical stimulus, it's going to be like, okay, I'm going to get this stimulus from there, so I don't have to worry about that. And then I know I'm not speaking in the most scientific terms here, but just
no,
sort of dumbing
I
it
don't know.
down. Like it's going to expect that stimulus from there, so it's going to optimize itself by not doing that because it knows it's going to get that from there, and then it's just going to focus on being efficient in the other aspects of what it does.
Right,
Try
absolutely.
to stay away from anything like that.
And that kind of leads me to this other point. Like, so then how much of a role does genetics play kind of in like what your like how your body works? Like, for me, I have a higher metabolism, which means I need to eat more, right? I need to eat more to gain more weight. But like you say for someone else, maybe they have a slower metabolism, so they need to maybe eat less and do more, or you know what I mean? So I mean, I wonder like kind of what role genetics plays, because then some guys might actually need supplements, to start to get better, right?
Yeah, I would say I think people are genetically predisposed to certain things, obviously, but you don't really know what you're genetically capable of unless you push yourself to those depths and go to those places where you're like, all right, I've done everything I can before you get into certain things. Like, I get that you specifically, like, you needed to do something so you could get to where you wanted faster. It makes
Right.
perfect sense. But
Yeah.
if you were like 11 years old and you're going to just say, oh, I have bad genetics, you have no idea. Like, I could have been like, oh, I didn't have good genetics. I'm not going to make it. But at the same time, where's the fun in that? Like, you didn't try. You didn't
Yeah.
optimize yourself. You didn't take yourself to those different levels. Like, if you look at me at 11 years old, you look at me at 16 years old, you're not going to look at a kid and be like, okay, that kid is genetically like, he's got it. You know what I mean? Like, you have to, it's almost like you bring it out of yourself at some point. Like, you have to just push yourself, push yourself, push yourself, and see what your body is really capable of. And I think a lot of that just comes from your brain. Like, you have to believe that you're something special. And believing you're something special eventually creates something special. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes like from your mentality.
Yeah.
You're a big guy on mentality. You're constantly posting stuff about the faith and different things for pitchers. Like, I mean, you probably know that better than anyone.
Yeah, I think I would say my God-given ability is, granted, I've had yips moments and all that stuff. I think my God-given ability is my ability to take myself to different levels through my own self-belief that I can do it. Like my buddy, I told him at the beginning of this year I was going to hit 98, and I hadn't sniffed 95 in 3 years. I told him I was hitting 98 this year. He didn't believe me. Didn't believe me. And here we are. And it's not even the year's over. So I don't know. And I'm gonna definitely put it out there. I'm hitting 100 one day. I don't know when, don't know yet, but it's gonna happen. And just watch. Like I know I'm gonna do it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you're that close, Joey, I mean, you can put. I mean, you set your mind to anything, you can do it.
Yep.
I mean, that's how I kind of feel like with being on my my Road to 90 series. I kind of had a massive loss in velocity this past season just because I didn't take care of my body well. But ever since I started like training and seeing just the numbers kind of go up and up and up, it's like I didn't really think this was possible. But man, maybe I'll hit 90 by the end of the year. You know,
But it's not even like that's the one thing I have an issue with is, and I'm a culprit of this too, where I'm like writing on my videos like 100 or die, 95 or die. If you're chasing it like that, you're never gonna get it.
yeah, yeah,
Like you almost like put it on a pedestal. And
yeah.
I think I'm from here forward, I'm not gonna be doing that anymore where I write like 100 or die or anything like that, because I'm thinking about it, and I've heard people talk about this, like whatever your goal is, if you put it on a pedestal, I mean, at the end of the day, somebody else has probably already done whatever your goal is. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, what's so good about that? I've already done it. You should have that mindset, because if you think about like anything in this world, I mean, you got dudes that are just flicking 100 miles an hour. If I'm like putting 100 on a pedestal and not being like, oh, I'm just going to get you at some point, like there's a, it's almost like you're tricking your brain into being like, I'm not going to get there, but I'm going to chase getting there, instead of like, I will be there and it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it comes down to determination, and that's something that I was kind of like learning about this, this past summer. It's like you say that you want something, but it's like how bad do you really want this thing? Like how bad
Exactly.
do you want it, and I think that like so it's interesting because it's like you put this like number in your head, right? And then once you constantly hit these new personal records, 85, 86, 87, 88, until you reach that number, you're just kind of like, those numbers are cool, but like you want something bigger than that, and that's how I was kind of, I've kind of been feeling too, is like, we, as guys who, as pitchers who are chasing higher numbers, it's like, you have to have that determination because you're going to have a lot of days where you fail. And again, that comes back to like, that's all a mentality thing. It's all a mentality thing first and foremost. And it's, that's something that no supplement can ever like supply. It's like it's that determination because you have to reach into yourself and you have to find somewhere you want this. Like this is where you're at. You don't want to stay at where you're at. You only have a certain amount of time, you only have a certain amount of eligibility, you only have a certain amount of years, right? That you can do this in your life, right? And you have to go and find it. That's what makes people dangerous, especially if guys can figure that out. The sooner they figure that out and they become determined and they have that tunnel vision, like the sooner they figure that out, the more unstoppable they become.
Exactly. I mean, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. I mean,
Yeah.
look at Paul Skeens. Do you think Paul Skeens is accrediting his success to taking creatine or something? Heck no. It's his brain. Like he's on a regimented lifestyle from being in the military, and he knows exactly what he has to do to get what he wants. And that's what he sticks to. And that's very similar to what I do, where I'm just like, I know what it's going to take, I think at least. And now I'm going to go with my gut and I'm going to go after it and try to get it done. That's it.
Absolutely.
That's the only way you can do it.
All right, guys. Well, thanks, Joey, for joining me for the first episode of On the Bump Across the Diamond. And thank you, everyone else, for watching the video.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. Anytime. All right, guys. See you in the next one.